Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to try something. So if everybody will just bear with me, let's see what happens here. Okay. There we go. Let's see what happens. Okay. So what happened to my share screen there? Let's see. Oh, it does work the way I want it to. Okay.
All right.
More or less, yeah. Let's see, stop share. There we go. This morning I got up and I said, oh, I should have sort of an announcement of, we have two meetings. One of them is this upcoming Saturday and then in a month. And so we promote our big meetings along with the little meetings. So let me. Co-host, and let's see. Okay, now I should make Victoria a co-host. And when Nancy gets here, I'll make her a co-host. And hopefully everything works well.
Great. Yep. So far, so good.
Okay. Okay. So if anybody would like to unmute himself or herself and chat for a few minutes, I just set that up.
Yeah, good morning. This is Sri. This is the first time I'm joining your seminar. I used to come to,
yes.
I used to come
Welcome.
to Spark Ball Center many years ago. So I'm glad I'm able to do, through Zoom. I look forward to your talk, and hopefully I'll plan my retirement.
You're planning your retirement?
Well, I'm in retirement now. I have to plan.
Oh, you're in retirement now. Yeah, planning's a good idea.
After the fact.
That's time to start right now.
Yeah, we have two presentations. One will be a bit more serious and one will be a bit more fun, but I think I've worked with fiduciaries before and I really learned the value. Let somebody else deal with all of that.
Agree.
Yes.
Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Phil. How you doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Oh, good. Good this morning.
Good to see
you.
you.
A little cold, but
yes.
Oh, should we let Fred in? Yeah. Fred is our chapter president.
Oh, yeah, might be nice to let him in.
Yeah. So far we're up to almost 20 of us. So we always get 3 or 4 very late, at a couple of minutes after 10, but oh, we're up to 20 now. Okay. So when we were meeting at the Skirball, 20 was a good turnout. Now we're getting closer to 30 most of the time.
It's a lot easier to just log into a Zoom.
Oh, it is. The very first Zoom we ever did in our chapter, we had somebody from London. So that was really something. Oh, here's Nancy. And here's a woman whose last name is Einstein, so. Okay, she must get a lot of jokes that way, but let's see if I can find,
Good morning, Nancy.
there we go.
Morning.
Wait a second, okay. Let's see there. Okay. Nancy, I made you a co-host,
Thank you.
so, and let's see. Oh, we're up to 28, so we're gonna have a good turnout, it looks like.
Good.
Okay.
Hi, Evan.
Hi, Deborah. You're letting people in, I see.
Can you make me a co-host?
I can find you on the list, sure. How come it doesn't show up? It should. Let's see. And it keeps, oh, are you under D?
No, Deborah.
Okay, because there's a D here, and I was looking, it's, how come it's not?
You can go into participant and define participant
Right.
type.
And you should be under Deborah, but it goes from David to Don.
Oh, you probably have to scroll all the way down.
I've been doing that. I hear you, you're in. Yeah. Oh, there you are. You're way up at the top. Make co-host. Okay. That's right. Okay, so it's the four of us.
Okay.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I should probably wait, oh, one more minute. We have a pretty good turnout so far. Okay, so Deborah, I'll let you handle the participants for a few minutes. We're also quiet.
We're cold.
Cold, cold, yes. But
We're
I had
frozen.
oh, really? But I had 2 cups of coffee, so I'm all raring to go.
Victoria, it's only 57 degrees. I think we're going to be okay.
I know I could never live anywhere colder. I'm always cold.
I was born and raised here. This is cold. Okay, folks, let's get started. My name is Evan Press, and I'm the coordinator of the AAII Retirement Group. So let me make a few announcements, and then we'll go right into Victoria, right? Okay. Let's see if we can get this to work. This is the hardest part. There we go. Okay. So first of all, this coming Saturday, the 20th, we're going to have Bob Dahl making his 2021 predictions. Every year he's a Wall Street regular. He
Are
makes
you trying to
predictions.
share your screen? Sorry to interrupt. We
Oh,
don't
I'm
see,
sorry. You're right.
don't see your screen.
I'm so excited here. Okay. Let's see. There we go.
There we go.
Now, let's see. How's that look?
Now we see something.
Okay, and I tried to get the whole page showing at once. So anyway, Bob Dahl makes his predictions every year at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year, he goes through the previous year's predictions, which ones happened, which ones didn't. It's interesting. Maybe he got some right, maybe he got some wrong. We'll see. We're also going to have Nancy Tengler from Laffer Tengler Investment. She's going to talk about how to invest in a world awash with liquidity. So everything seems to be getting funded these days. There's lots of cash out there. On April 17th, we're going to have a very special day. We tried to schedule this for last year in person, and it fell through. It's a father and son team. It's an interesting story. I'll give you a quick background. So Gaddis Rose is the father. He spoke to us maybe 3 or 4 years ago. His story is he made a nice chunk of money through some sort of very traditional business. I want to say it was washers and dryers for apartment buildings, something boring like that. But he sold his business, and now, I guess for the last 10, 15 years, whatever it is, he's been managing his own investments. And what he said is he gets up every morning, does his exercise, gets cleaned up, gets in the car, and drives to his office. Well, his office is just for himself, but he advocates taking this very seriously. His son is a vice president at Stock Charts, and they're going to talk about the lessons that the son learned, and then I guess some of the lessons that the father learned from the son. So that should be real interesting. It's open to everybody. Invite your children, your grandchildren, nieces and nephews. I wanted to share a few websites with you as a little bit extra, give you a little bit that's more or less standard investment stuff. Humble Dollar, which is run by the longtime financial journalist Jonathan Clements. A lot of good advice. He has a guide that will guide you through getting started. He posts a lot of articles by just average people that talk about their experiences with investing, insurance, whatever it might be. Wealth of Common Sense is by Ben Carlson from Ritholtz Investments. He spoke to us a few months ago. I like it. He talks about a lot of different, more traditional investing ideas. And then the Foundation for Senior Services. It's a nonprofit that I'm involved in, and we're finishing up a series on financial basics, investing basics. So if you go to the website, foundationforseniorservices.org, and you click on event calendar, then you go down to March 16th, this coming Tuesday, you'll see it's a bright purple box, investing for your hard-earned money. There'll be 2 speakers, I'll be one of them. Basic investment options. Randy Miller, who's a registered investment advisor, will be talking about mutual funds, ETFs, real estates, and more options for investing. And then I'll be giving my presentation on how to write a personal investment plan. So if you're interested in that, you go to the Foundation for Senior Services, click the event calendar, click March 16th, and that will bring up your next screen. And on the right, there's a little gray button that says register now. So let's close that. And real quickly, the rules of the road are, please put your questions in the chat. And then Deborah, Lou, and I will be monitoring those questions. And then at the end of Victoria's, we'll ask her some of the questions, take a 5-minute break, then go to Nancy at the end of hers. We'll answer some of the questions, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes extra to pick up anything that Victoria didn't. Their contact information will be on their presentation, so you can write that down, email them, call them, get further advice. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this over to Victoria. If you folks will be kind enough to mute yourselves. If you want to, also, you can stop your video. So if the dog barks and you have to run over there, it doesn't disturb everybody, okay? I have that problem. So let's see how we do here. Victoria, you try. Hit your share
Okay.
screen and let's see what happens.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and we'll get started here. Okay, so here we are. So we are going to discuss the best gift that you can give. So organizing your details of life for you and your loved ones. As Evan said, my name is Victoria Riso. I am a California licensed professional fiduciary. So a professional fiduciary is basically someone who can professionally serve as any one of these roles. So we serve as trustee, successor trustee, conservator, which some people know as a guardian, which is basically a court-ordered power of attorney. We serve as executor if somebody lists us in their will in advance. We serve as an administrator of an estate if it's going through probate. We also serve as power of attorney, whether that be for finances or for healthcare. For healthcare, another term would be a healthcare agent. And we can serve as a daily money manager. So bill pay, any of those daily money matters. So whether it be processing mail and making sure that all those bills are paid, or nothing's overcharged or done incorrectly. Primarily who we serve, this is a list of some of the folks we serve. So older adults or seniors. We work with family caregivers. We work with adult children who are concerned about their aging parents. Sometimes it's a matter of, it's just a situation that the older or the adult children can't manage, or, just because of location. They're just not here and they want a known, trusted person who's close to mom and dad. We also work with disabled individuals, so assisting with special needs trusts. And just any of others in a life transition situation. There's various things that we all come across in life, and a professional fiduciary potentially could help with that. We basically serve people who don't have anyone close to them willing and able to serve. This is just a photo of myself and Sherry Samaton, who is another licensed fiduciary, and she brought me on board early on in my start to this. So why do we need to have a plan? I believe someone had mentioned earlier in the very beginning of this in the small talk that they were planning for retirement. So I want everyone to it's going to be a hard stretch to imagine right now because of the pandemic and everything being shut down, but kind of imagine that you're either out on the golf course or out with some friends for lunch, and all of a sudden you have a heart attack and you die. Seems pretty abrupt, I know, but that's basically what could happen to any one of us, right? Especially with this pandemic, any one of us could get COVID and have, an emergency situation immediately. So can you say yes to these questions? Would your spouse or your family, your loved ones, would they know what to do? Would they be able to find your important documents? Would they know where they're secured, where they're hidden? What about your home? Whether you're married or single, who's maintaining the home, whether it be the bills or just the actual maintenance of the home. The pets, do you have someone in place to care for the pets if you were in a long stay at a hospital or you had passed away? Any business matters? So do your business partners know how to step in? Does your spouse know how to step in? Or your adult children or those that are close around you, how to step in and continue operating things. And it really, I mean, the bottom line is have you selected someone to help make these decisions for you if you are unable to? There's many just daily things that we all go through, just paying our bills. Is there somebody else that knows all the bills that need to be paid to keep everything going? I think these days we do have a lot of auto pay, so that's helpful. But there are some things that maybe are just a check is written annually, or if something's on auto pay, we need to know where's it coming from? How do we stop it if we need to stop that? Do these people know where your treasures will be found? Does somebody know that you buried gold bars in the backyard? Does somebody know that you stuffed $100 bills in that couch cushion? Because we don't want to have someone send that to Goodwill when we're cleaning out the house, and we didn't know that there was, thousands of dollars stuffed, up in the leg of a chair or something like that. And so there's just kind of two different situations here, right? We've got medical situation, maybe a long-term stay in a hospital. We need to keep things going so that when you return home, it's kind of business as usual in a sense. And then there's also death. And how do we kind of wrap things up? How do we tie up all the loose ends and pass things off to where they need to be passed off to? It's a little bit of a tough way to say it, but for those of you who are married, you kind of need a plan to basically show your spouse how to be a widow or how to be a widower. Would they be able to carry on the duties that you are doing as a couple, your portion of the duties. Some other things to think about and hopefully have a plan for is, so many people think like, oh, for sure, I'll outlive my spouse, or my spouse will outlive me, or whatever. You need to plan for both scenarios. What if you develop dementia? What if your spouse develops dementia? Who's handling the household chores or household duties, if you're unable to, or if your spouse is unable to? Again, back to who's paying the bills, who is stepping in to just assist you with or assist your family with all those tasks and duties that you were doing. Mobility issues as we age become like a focus. And so take a look around your home right now. Is this a home that you could age in? Are there a bunch of stairs everywhere? Is there a lot of maintenance that's required? Are you the one that does all the gardening, all the lawn mowing, all that? Do we need to start thinking about looking into bringing in a gardener, or at least having someone available so that when it gets to that time that we can no longer do these things that are maybe physically taxing, who's someone that can step in and take care of these matters? And then also, again, in your home, is this suitable for in-home care? If you needed to bring a care provider into your home, every situation is different. So sometimes it's just a few hours a day, no problem. But sometimes it's 24 hours. It's round the clock care for you. Is there a room in your home where a caregiver could stay for their shift, like an overnight shift? So there's many things to think about, not only, for those of us who are single, making sure that we have thought about these things, and then also for those who are married, that you've thought about them with your spouse. And certain decisions that you make today can definitely impact what the future looks like, or the lack of making decisions can definitely impact how your future looks, or how it's all going to play out. So you may have an idea of, you're like, oh, of course I will stay in my home until my dying days, and that's just what I'll do. But if you've never told anybody that, they might not know that. And if you're single, or maybe your spouse has passed before you and now you're alone in your home, your adult children or whomever you've deemed your agents may think, oh gosh, mom or dad, was super social. There's no way that they would want to live alone in that home. We better move them into a senior community and make sure that they're around other people. But if you never told them, nope, I always want to stay in this home until take my last breath, that's a discussion to have. So they can't help make your wishes happen if they don't know it. It's also a good idea to make sure that you've connected with a financial advisor to make sure that whatever your wishes are, that you can financially afford it, or it works for you. So there's so many levels of care and different living situations, housing options, and everything. And so you want to make sure that that's been thought out completely, and all the different things that could possibly happen, or different directions that could take. So not trying to scare anyone, but yet I am trying to scare some people, because I think there's a lot of us that maybe don't have a plan yet together. So for those of you who don't have any plan at all, or even those that do, but maybe it's outdated or it needs to be updated, or there's just some tweaks to make. The question is, so now, okay, so you scared me enough, Victoria, what do I do? So basically you want to create an owner's manual. We call it a life transition plan. And it's basically just a handbook, a guide for you. It's all about you. And so there's different formats you can use, whether it be electronic or it's a hard copy. Are you going to give copies of it, whether it be electronic or hard copy, to your loved ones, to those that you've selected to serve as your agents? Where will it be stored? Do you have it? If you have it saved in a computer, does whoever needs to access it, do they have the password for that computer, or is it in a safe? Do they have the code for that safe? And where are your original estate planning documents? That's always key to have that in a known place, not too well known, but known to those who need to know. And understanding records retention, so making sure that your appointed person understands what they can throw away and when, and what they shouldn't throw away. So having a discussion about, again, from personal to business, all those things. Understanding identity protection. So there's various providers out there that offer identity theft protection. And it's one thing if you're actively living your life and you're kind of keeping a pulse on all your accounts and all the things. It's another thing if you're incapacitated or if you're deceased. It's definitely a place where people are coming after those that are most vulnerable. So obviously there's different providers, whether it be Xander Insurance or Legal Shield or kind of any one of those. You'd want to research those and see what's a good fit for you. But something that I would strongly encourage every person to have some type of identity theft protection in place. And really at the bottom line, in case of emergency. So sorry for your Android folks, I'm not familiar with Android, but for iPhone, you can list emergency contacts in your phone. So when you go to your contacts, if you select your spouse or your adult child, or your neighbor, your brother, your sister, whomever, you can go to their contact and scroll all the way down, and there's you can push the button to make them an emergency contact. And what that does is put a little red asterisk next to their name. And when your phone is still locked, you can still access those emergency contacts. So if it's a medical, emergency, those first responders, or just somebody else, if your phone is locked and therefore you're unable to unlock it, then somebody else would be able they wouldn't be able to unlock your phone, but they would be able to get access to those emergency contacts to contact them, and notify them of whatever situation you're in. I believe when on the locked screen, if you kind of try to unlock it enough times, it pops up emergency ID or something like that at the bottom. And then it shows like your name, your birthday, your blood type, if you're an organ donor, and your emergency contacts. So that's definitely something that I would encourage everyone to do. Again, sorry, Android, I'm sure they have something of that nature, but that's for iPhone. I'm an iPhone user. So I would encourage people to do that. And then also, if you have your estate planning documents done, then having your estate planning attorney's contact information somewhere accessible for your family to get to that. So this owner's manual, this life transition plan, what should be included? So it gets a little bit intimate. It's a lot of information. So a lot of biographical stuff, which seems a little bit odd. But there's some things on a death certificate that are necessary. So a death certificate, there's a place for your parents' first name, your parents. So if you're the one that passes, it's your parents' first name, your parents' last name, and where they were born. So it seems a little bit odd. Why do they need to know where my parents were born? But that's what's on the death certificate. They also ask about employment. What would you list as your occupation, and for how long were you in that occupation? So you may be thinking, or there might be somebody thinking like, oh yes, of course, I've been an educator my entire life. I'm an educator. That's what it would say. It would say educator. Well, maybe your spouse or your children or whomever is doing this for you would put, oh yeah, dad was a teacher. Dad was a teacher. We'll put teacher, but you would want educator. And some of you might be like, okay, who cares? I'm dead. What does it matter? And some of you, that is a big deal. Yes, no, I want to make sure that it does indicate exactly as I would want it. And so that's why this plan, there's some things that some of you will say, nope, doesn't matter. I don't really care. They can decide for me. And then there's some things that you might be more specific on. But the bottom line is that you've thought about it and you've either decided to not make a decision or you've decided what the decision will be. Having a list of dependents is good, and contact information, definitely including pets. I believe in America, there's like over 100,000 pets that go into shelters every year because an owner passes away and there's no plan for the pet and there's nobody around that owner who can take the pet. As an animal lover, that just breaks my heart. So there's organizations like Bark Avenue Foundation that can help keep pets with their owners while they're still alive, obviously, and help find housing options, or find a suitable home for the pet, so they don't just go into a shelter. So don't forget about our pets. So a list of your assets with the beneficiary designations and contact information is always very helpful. And making sure that those are updated, not just in this plan, but officially in whichever institution that you have those assets listed with. Liabilities, so we need to kind of know who's going to come after your estate, or who do we need to be making sure that we're, that the bills get paid, or that the mortgage, all those things. Income, where's the money coming from, or how do we get it if it's not coming? Who do we contact for that? Expenses. Insurance coverage, it's always great to have the description of coverage just at the ready. Credit cards, debit cards, so even those ones that you don't use, those ones that are tucked away in that drawer that you just have in case of emergency, definitely a list needs to be made. That's just an open invitation for fraud, because that's clearly something that's not really being monitored because you don't really use it. And if something were to happen to you, you'd want your loved ones to know that that's a card that needs to be canceled, needs to be handled. Memberships kind of on two fronts. One, logistically, right? If something were to happen to you and you're a part of a membership or a part of an organization, and you have some responsibilities in it, your family should, or your loved ones should contact them and let them know, hey, this is the situation. They're not going to be able to participate in assisting this organization, either whether it be for the time being or permanently. And then also just on a more emotional level, if you're a member of something, there might be other individuals that would want to send their, good well wishes or their condolences to your family. So having a list of those memberships and who to contact in case something were to happen to you is also important. Advisors and other service providers. Knowing who your healthcare professionals is definitely key when assisting an incapacitated person, especially because they have your medical history. And so it's always helpful to those that are helping make decisions for you that they have those resources available to them. Secured places and passwords. We are in a technology-driven world. And so even just to open your phone, just knowing what that password is, would be extremely helpful. It could be months and months and months of court just to get that code. So having that somewhere, either sharing that with somebody that you trust. For me, it's my little brother. He has my phone password. Sharing it with someone that you trust now, or at least putting it in a secure place and telling someone that you trust where it is, should the need arise, and then they can have that. Because I'm sure there's not only a lot of information for handling your daily affairs, but also emotional. There's the photos on there that people would want access to. And then end of life plans. So a lot of us, whether it be for a variety of reasons, religious reasons, family reasons, the family plot is already bought, no problem. So there's a lot more that goes into end of life. So, I mean, you all the way down to, you can choose what type of attire you want to be cremated in. Now, some people would say that seems silly. They're just going to cremate me. What does it matter what I'm wearing? But to some people, for religious reasons, there's certain attire that they would want to be wearing. And so, but if you never tell anyone, never write this down, they would never know what your wishes are. So how to get started. So basically communication is paramount here. So there's, several individuals listed here that you could work with. If obviously if you're married, you probably would want to have a discussion with your spouse, make sure that, we're all on the same page, we're all on board. That doesn't mean that you have to have the same wishes as your spouse. One spouse may be cremated, one buried. One spouse maybe says, nope, keep me in the home until my dying days, my last breath. And one spouse says, you know what, I want to move into that senior center as soon as possible so I can start making friends before, I get to the point that I can no longer make friends. So just having that discussion with them and making sure that each of you understands the other's desires, wishes, interests, or your partner, or your family. Estate planning attorney, obviously they can help guide you. They work with a variety of different clients with different needs and different situations. And so even if there's something that you think like, oh, this might be odd or this might be weird, you could still mull it over with the estate planning attorney and see what they have to offer of what would be the best way to document what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Again, financial advisor to make sure that you're on the right track to have your money last as long as you do. Make sure that you're on track to have those funds necessary for the type of lifestyle that you want into those years. Business partners, is it all set up already? Are the documents all drafted of what happens if something happens to you or another business partner? Do they do they assume your duties, your role, your percentage of the company? Are they now in business with your spouse or your beneficiaries? Do we liquidate it? If you don't have any business partners, does your spouse know how to run it, or do they have the necessary access to the necessary information to keep it running until it can either get sold or just keep it running? And then healthcare professionals, can help you make healthcare decisions, help guide you with that advanced healthcare directive to see what your options are. There's, we're in the business of life, and there's a lot of gray area. It's not just black and white. So I know I have a friend that says, yeah, when it's my time, just take me out back and shoot me. Yeah, not exactly legal. I can't really do that for you. So, it's not just a matter of, we're functioning totally fine, and then one day, we just fall asleep and don't wake up. That's just not the reality of life. There's a lot of gray area of, decline that can happen, whether it be physically or mentally. So a healthcare professional could help you walk through what the reality of that is. You want to go ahead and you want to do that while you do it in advance, while you're still of sound mind, sound body, while you're not on this stressful timeline. You don't want to get that kind of, death sentence, if you will, that terrible news about, the stage 4 cancer, or now that you've tested positive for coronavirus or something like that. And now we're trying to rush and get all this together and make all these decisions when we're also under this stress of this, this pending, major medical situation. So make those decisions now while you have the time to carefully and thoughtfully just go through everything. So some of you may be thinking, sure, no problem, I can do this. I've got a spouse, I've got adult children who are capable and competent. I've got a really good neighbor, I've got whoever I've got. But some of you may either have none of those things or have some of those things, but not all. So a professional fiduciary is somebody who can step in and help guide you. So just as a reminder, these are some of the roles that professional fiduciaries serve as. And professional fiduciaries are entrusted to provide experience, resources, and knowledge to oversee services like bill paying, legal matters, investment management, medical decisions, housing options, among many, many, many other things. We basically help people with the business of life. And if you took a step back and looked at your own life, you would see there's so many things that you have going on. So we are that person that could step in and make decisions as though we were you, if you were unable to make those decisions for yourself. But I want to be clear, we are not attorneys. and we are not financial advisors. There's sometimes when people hear the term fiduciary, they think financial advisor. There's definitely a difference between a fiduciary role and a fiduciary responsibility and a professional fiduciary. So you might be saying, okay, well then who is a professional fiduciary? So professional fiduciaries are, we go through a rigorous licensing process. And so we are licensed by the state of California. It's a pretty robust process. The licensing started in 2009. And so for any non-family member fiduciary, you need to be licensed. You need an undergraduate degree, 30 hours of pre-licensing education credit. We go through a 50-state criminal background check, including being fingerprinted in all 50 states. And we have to pass the national and state licensing exam. And our license renews every year. And in order to renew it, we have 15 hours of continuing education credit. We are also mandated reporters. So because we are responsible for the care and custody of elderly and dependent adults, we're required to report any suspicion of abuse or neglect. And ultimately, we're bound by the California Probate Code. So even if we are not handling a court supervised matter or something that is going through the courts at all, that is our guide, is the probate code. That's what guides our decision making, and that's what we're ultimately, that's what we're held up to. And then where to find a professional fiduciary. So this is just a short list, but you could reach out to professionals that you know, whether it be your estate planning attorney, financial advisor, accountant, realtor. There's sometimes, friends, family, neighbors, whatever may know a professional fiduciary. There's also online. So from a credible online source, I'm a member of the Professional Fiduciary Association of California, also known as PFAC. Earlier, Evan mentioned the senior specialist group, the Foundation for Senior Services. So foundationforseniorservices.org. That's another organization where you could find professionals that work with seniors and provide services for seniors. But as with anything that we do in life, when you're looking for something online, take it with a grain of salt, still be diligent, do your research. This is a huge position of trust. So even when you find that fiduciary, you may want to interview 2 or 3 and tell them your specific situation and see if they're the right fit specifically for you. I will mention on that PFAC, you can find a fiduciary. There's an option on there to find a fiduciary based on your zip code. So there's that. And then here's some questions that you could ask a fiduciary. This is clearly a very important position. And so the questions are endless, honestly. You could always have more questions, but these are some of the top ones. So making sure that they are insured, that they have their proper credentials. A big one that I'm always asked is about fee structure. Some fiduciaries charge on a percentage of the value of your estate. Some charge on an hourly basis. So that would be a discussion to have with fiduciaries that you're interested in moving forward with. What is your succession plan? If you come across a fiduciary and everything's lining up, you think they're wonderful, they're great, but they're about your same age. What if they retire? What if something happens to them? Whether it be medically or they pass away before you, whose hands do you get passed into? And maybe you should meet with that person, or, what is that plan? What does it look like for you? How are you going to be taking care of your beneficiaries, going to be taken care of if something happens to that fiduciary? And if they have staff and what their roles are, you can feel free to ask them their office, their business practices, if you will. And you can officially verify a professional fiduciary on the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau website, which is regulated by California. And you could go on there to make sure that their license is up to date, and see probably many of you just how you can do like a broker's check. I think probably some of us have done that. And so you can do the same on a fiduciary to see if there's any marks against them. You could ask a fiduciary, if they have any former or current clients that they would allow you to speak with as a referral, or any other professionals that they've worked with, and you could to make sure that they're the right fit for you. So big takeaway for today is to remember to update. So for those of you that already have your estate planning documents in order, that already have your life transition plan or something of that nature in order, you still want to update it. We recommend updating it every 3 to 5 years. We personally check in with our clients every year just to kind of see, as this last year has shown us, a lot can happen in 1 year. And so we check in once a year just to see if there's any major life events. Family changes. So whether it be additions to the family, in-laws married in, right? Son-in-law, daughter-in-law married into the family, or you got married, or you got divorced, or there's a death in the family. Do we need to move things around? Do we need to change things? Are there new grandkids in the picture? And perhaps also your agents, maybe they're no longer appropriate. Maybe when you were younger, you chose a sibling of yours to serve in a certain capacity. And since that time, that sibling has passed, or that sibling has mental health issues or substance abuse issues, or perhaps one of your beneficiaries now has, a child or grandchild now has mental health issues or substance abuse issues. And so now their portion of what you were leaving for them, maybe you'd want to leave it in trust, or maybe you'd want to have a different situation set up for them. So it's just something to think about. If you have any major asset or liability changes, that's something to make note of. If you open a business, close a business, there's all kinds of things that could happen. And if you move to another state, so each state has its own estate laws. So just because you make estate planning documents in California and then you pack your bags and move to Texas, you got to do it again. You need to, or at least you might, it depends. Every state, I shouldn't say you have to do it again, but you should check with an estate planning attorney in that state that you move to, because it might be a whole draft, redraft of it. It might just be an addendum to it. Every state is different. So you'd want to speak with legal professionals in that state to see what exactly needs to be done for that. So our company is LifeBridge Solutions, and we can absolutely help guide you. We help a variety of individuals, like I said, in various stages of life. We have clients all over the country as far as our daily money management goes. For our fiduciary services, for the most part, we keep that to Southern California. We kind of go from like the Valley down to San Diego. But we work with those that are seniors. We work with those that have a divorce situation, or those that are just busy professionals. There's just a variety of situations that we can provide support to. We're really that second set of eyes. And so hopefully we are kind of relieving stress from you, whether it be that you're listing us in your documents and now okay, a professional is handling this, I feel good. Or perhaps you are listing a family member or friend to serve as one of your agents, but you have a fiduciary that could provide administrative support to them. So while your, let's say your oldest child is listed as your successor trustee, they're going to be the ones to sign all the documents, to do it all, but it might be nice to have a professional to come in and guide them. And so they could be brought on board, a professional fiduciary could be brought on board, or at least be that information given to the child, the adult child, to help them, guide them through the process, what needs to be done and in what order. We are well-connected individuals in the community, and so we are constantly networking and growing and learning and everything. And so if there's a service or need that we can't provide or that we shouldn't provide, we definitely can direct you to somebody who can. So we can refer you to other services and other providers for whatever your needs may be. And I mean, I think there's just a variety of things in life that we all seek out professionals. Maybe for some of the ladies, they don't ever do their own nails. They go get their nails professionally done. We seek out medical professionals. We hire people to do all kinds of things that are professions in that field. Why would we not bring in a professional to administer our estate? So I've been asked recently, okay, but if I have family, if I have friends, if I have someone I trust, why would I hire a fiduciary? So sometimes, even though you have that competent, capable person who is willing and able to do it, they just have a busy life. They're busy with their own careers. They're busy with their children, their own household. Maybe they travel a lot for work. This last year isn't like a good example, I guess, but who knows? Any number of things could come up. And so a professional fiduciary could be someone that's local, that's consistent, that does this professionally, and is going to be here because this is their job. It's also sometimes tough. Every time that adult child or that spouse or that neighbor, that friend has to close a bank account, has to sell the house, or administer any one of those kind of end of life and closing out an estate type of matter, they're still going through that grieving process. And for some, that's really difficult. It's really hard to be grieving and trying to stay focused and get everything done and be, just really of a confident mind to handle these matters. And again, sometimes it's location. So if somebody that you think, oh yeah, this person would be great. Yeah, but they live far away. They wouldn't be able to get here in a hurry. They don't have the means to do that, or they don't have, they're not able to travel or something. So I think the technology has definitely helped, right? We can now FaceTime and Zoom and all these things. And so there's many ways that the location sometimes doesn't matter as much, but sometimes it does. And so just taking that into account, even though your adult child may be a wonderful person to be able to do this, they live far away. And so maybe it might not be the best choice. We also are familiar with navigating probate courts. So if things do get ugly, do get litigious, and we need to, and that, you've got siblings fighting or something, just all the family dynamics that happen. So we can help guide that. So why not give the gift? So completing your life transition plan and your estate planning documents is the best gift you can give. It's definitely something that I would strongly recommend. If you don't have all your affairs in order, or you haven't updated them recently, you definitely get on it. So again, the company is LifeBridge Solutions. We are based out of Beverly Hills, but we have clients all over. My name is Victoria Riso, California licensed professional fiduciary. My contact information is there. So I'll go ahead and I'll leave that up so that if you want to take a picture of it, write it down or whatnot. But then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, there are a lot of questions. I want to start with one other use of a fiduciary. I was a financial advisor in an estate office. We did a lot of trust administration. And I remember one case where we had two sisters and a brother. And evidently the brother had some mental issues. So the sister that was the successor trustee tried to deal with him and just couldn't. Plus, the two sisters didn't get along. And eventually what they did was they just turned it all over to a professional fiduciary, because a professional fiduciary can say, I'm sorry, or no.
Anyone who is interested in our work and to learn more. What we want people to come in and do is to join.
Please mute everybody. Let's see.
Impacts every person in the
Who's ever
community.
talking?
And our goal.
There, I just muted.
Thank you.
Evan, you're muted. You're muted, Evan.
So this avoided a lot of later family issues. When I needed the money, you wouldn't give it to me. You made me wait, or anything like that. That the professional fiduciary can be the heavy. Okay, so that was just my experience of where I really saw the benefit. And from my standpoint as a financial advisor, it was much easier to deal with the professional fiduciary, because I could say, oh, I need a copy of this form, or she could call and say, I need a copy of this statement or something like that. Or if she went to court, she could say to the judge, we have a professional financial advisor handling this, and here are the statements. So let me go through some of these questions. What would be the proper way to share a bank account or a brokerage account? Let's say mom has the account and just can't make it to the bank like she used to, doesn't feel comfortable on the computer. What would be the proper way for her to get one of the children to help with the bank account or the brokerage account?
Sure. So if you're just going to sit down with mom, and I mean, you could sit down with her in front of the computer, right? And log in and help her create the username, create the password type of a deal. It's technically illegal to log into someone's bank account as though you're them, like, you know, even if you have their information, and even if they say that's fine, that's fine. But if you sit down with her, I know that I've had clients where or make phone calls with her. I've done that with clients where, you know, we call, and it's because it's tough as we get older to navigate those touch tone systems, right? Press 1 for this and 2 for that. And I get tangled up in it sometimes. And so sit down with her and make that phone call with her. They're going to ask her, okay, is she present? Okay, and then they'll speak with her. You put it on speakerphone. Do you authorize, you know, the bank will ask, do you authorize that I have this conversation with this person? And she'll say yes. I mean, the formal way to really do it is for mom to have a power of attorney in place. And so she could have a power of attorney in place, and it could be effective immediately. And so therefore, you know, Junior or whoever has access in that capacity. And then those documents get put on file with that institution, with that bank. And so now it's known that that they're allowed to come into the branch, or, you know, call up or whatever with the proper pins and whatever that is needed. And they're legally authorized to access that account.
Okay, there are 2 questions that sort of came in and they fit together. First, and I'll blend them for you and then you can answer.
Okay.
Do fiduciaries work with investment advisors? And do fiduciaries have authority to move assets? So would the fiduciary have authority to sell stocks or mutual funds, or buy stocks or mutual funds? And how does the fiduciary interact with the financial advisor?
Right. We definitely work with financial advisors. So every situation is different. And so some, it's just super easy, right? Somebody, I shouldn't say super easy, but some pass away. It's pretty straightforward, I should say. Some pass away, and it's just a matter of, you know, liquidating everything, selling it, whatever, and then distributing the monies to the proper beneficiaries. For some, when the fiduciary, when you're putting, whether it be a fiduciary or anybody, when you're putting them in that position of power to make your financial decisions on your behalf, should you become incapacitated, they're now making those decisions. They're supposed to be, that's where they have a fiduciary role, a fiduciary responsibility to make them in your best interest. So if, if it's, should we, oh, mom always loved this stock, we should never sell it. Well, if it's going down and down and down or whatever, it's not in her best financial interest to keep those stocks. We need to sell as much as we can to be able to pay for mom's care. Then maybe that's what's the necessary thing to do. So yes, so somebody that you give that financial responsibility to, that financial authority to, they do have the ability to make those decisions as though they were you. So that's why it's a huge position of trust. And that's why even if you have a competent, capable adult child, they may not want that responsibility. So yeah, it's sometimes deciding, do we keep mom and dad in the home and get a reverse mortgage? Do we move them to a senior care, living situation? What do we do? And they're making those decisions. And some of them, they don't have the bandwidth to take that on, or they don't want to.
Okay, let's see. Another question, how would you choose, or how would you recommend that a client choose a successor trustee to handle the issues after that person is gone?
Sure. So again, it's going to be catered to your specific situation. So kind of what you had mentioned earlier, Evan, is, having siblings fighting. So if you maybe have 2 children and, oh, they get along, it's fine, everything's fine. They've always been the best of friends since the second one came out of the womb. When it comes to mom and dad and life and death and money decisions, people can get a little weird. And so sometimes it's just good that successor trustee is somebody that's a neutral party, but also sometimes maybe older sister is the only one that can really manage younger brother with his substance abuse issues. So maybe older sister is the best person to choose for that. So you definitely want somebody who is going to outlive you, right? Or statistically, you should want to pick someone who should outlive you, someone who's able to make these tough decisions. So, your sweet youngest child who cries at everything is probably not the best person for this, right? Because they might not be able to get through that phone call with the bank to close the account. They might, or in a timely fashion, at least. So there's, the personalities of your family, your friends. And so you want someone who can make these hard decisions, make them in a timely fashion, that works well with others to be able to navigate the healthcare system, navigate selling a house or selling the property, selling the vehicles, making sure that they're someone who can make decisions for the benefit of you or the benefit of your estate, not necessarily for the benefit of them. And that's where like the siblings, sometimes it's hard because one sibling says, let's spend all the money on mom and dad's care, while the other sibling says, if we spend all the money on mom and dad's care, we're not going to get anything. So no, put them in the cheaper facility. So that's why you want someone that honestly that you trust on every level and that can make these decisions as you would want them to be made.
Okay, we just had a question about paying a guardian. First of all, would you distinguish between the fiduciary role and the guardian role or the custodian? And then if you have anything to say about how a guardian might be paid.
Sure. So like a conservator. So in California, it's called a conservator. And so again, that's another thing that you would ask. There are some fiduciaries that don't do conservatorships, or I should say there's two branches of, you can either be conservator of the person, conservator of the estate. So kind of the healthcare and the finances. And there are some people that don't do conservatorships at all. There are some people that only do of the estate. There are some that only do of the person. And so that's a question to ask, right? If that's what they're going to be doing. But I mean, a conservatorship is kind of something that's after the fact. So if you have your estate planning documents in place, you have a power of attorney in place, or listed and everything, then you shouldn't need a conservatorship. Although there are exceptions that it can get to a conservatorship. But a conservatorship is, let's say somebody has already been deemed incapacitated, so they can no longer, they're not of sound mind to be making decisions. So therefore they're not able, there's no attorney no upstanding attorney that would allow them to sign estate planning documents. So they had no documents to start with, and they're now beyond the point that they could have documents in place. And there's somebody concerned about their well-being and their finances. That's when a conservatorship gets put into place, or, you can petition the court for a conservatorship to get put into place. And so it's not that there's a difference between a fiduciary and a conservator. A conservator is a role that a fiduciary can play. So the fiduciary is like the umbrella, that's the profession. And then, trustee, successor trustee, conservator, these are the various roles that we play. I think, did that answer? Was there like a second part?
You could have, let's say you have a family member who's very good with mom and would take care of her physically, but doesn't have the time or the expertise to handle the financial issues. So you could divide those up and say, I want, the oldest sister who's always been really close with mom and can move into the house and live with her and take care of her. And at the same time, you would have the fiduciary who would handle paying the bills and making sure that the insurance is up to date. And the one issue that just came up, beneficiaries on insurance policies. we've all seen horror stories. You want to quickly cover that?
Sure. I mean, what you have the ex-spouse listed, and then you listed it, or you listed your spouse, then you got divorced, then you got remarried, and you forgot. Well, guess what? It's going to go back to whatever was on record. So your ex-spouse is going to be happy, and your current spouse is not going to be happy. So absolutely, that's why we say, anytime there's a life change, every 3 to 5 years. For us, we check in with our clients every year. We're that reminder to them for all those things. So or perhaps you've listed a beneficiary who is now deceased, or who now has substance abuse issues, mental health issues. You maybe don't want them to be the beneficiary straight out for those monies, but rather you want them to be left, in trust or something like that. So and I think what I did miss, I think earlier, as far as pricing for conservator, again, every professional is going to be different. So you'd want to ask them what their pricing is, whether it be hourly or a percentage, or certain duties, certain roles, whatever. Okay.
And there's a question about how many clients can a typical professional fiduciary handle at one time?
You know what? That's going to be up to the fiduciary and how their practice is run. So one of our I'll bring this up again. I keep bringing up the Britney Spears. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine handling that, but that's quite an undertaking, right? There's a lot of media surrounding that and everything, the whole Free Britney. And so Jody, who's her conservator, is actually an amazing fiduciary. And so that is a client that's probably going to take up a big portion of her time. So maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put words in her mouth or say, but maybe she's kind of put on the brakes of taking new clients while she's handling that matter that seems to be, very demanding. But it just depends. I mean, being named in somebody's documents, if there's somebody who on this group, let's say somebody is on here and they're 70 years old and very healthy and everything's great, and they're financially good and they're active and doing their thing, and they list me as their successor trustee, I'm going to check in once a year, and they're, you're a client, as far as I'm concerned, you are my client, but I'm not actively doing much for you. I'm not actively administering your affairs right now. And so as far as the amount of time that I'm spending on your specific matter isn't very much. And so I can take on other, probate cases that are right now happening that are, demanding more of my time, but then, down the line, when you need more care, or, become disabled in some way, or incapacitated, or you die, then I'm going to spend obviously a lot more of my time focused on your case. So it really just depends. But that's why I say you can ask the fiduciaries their succession plan. So should something happen to them, who's kind of second in command to take over? And you want to ask them, what is their office setup? I will say most fiduciaries are independent. So most fiduciaries just work alone. They do it all. They're by themselves. With maybe a succession plan of another fiduciary that, like, should something happen to them, this other fiduciary will assume their practice in a sense. But then there's some fiduciaries that pair up, like Sherry and I, there's 2 of us. So whether you want one or the other, you get both.
Okay. So last question, and then we'll take a 5-minute break because we're all seniors, and we'll come back to Nancy, who will talk about something that maybe is a little lighter. Anyway, would you review what to do with digital assets? I'm thinking about this painting that just sold that's only, what do they call it? A non-fungible token. So it's basically only a digital digital painting. There's no painting with a friend that can be hung in a museum, and it sold for like $60 million. This is insane. But some of us may have other digital assets, accounts, policies, what happens to our blogs, or whatever it might be. What's a good way to handle all of that?
Sure. Right. And social media, all those things. And so that's where there's kind of two sides to that. One, you definitely want to get with a legal professional. So you want to sit down with an attorney, because those digital assets could be, for the income from those or whatever, placed in a trust. So if you have something ongoing, right, you've got something being sold on Amazon type of a deal, where does that money go into? And then also social media and all that again, back to that, those, kind of hiding places, secret places and passwords and all that, and what are your wishes for that? So yes, some people, maybe not so much this crowd, but maybe of a younger generation, their Instagram is a huge thing, right? That's a client list in a sense. And so, yeah, is there any value in that? And so that's a discussion to have with a legal professional. It's definitely, you want to make sure that those passwords, so that your loved ones don't have to go through the court system to be able to gain access to those digital assets.
Yeah, I think of the stories about people who can't find their passwords to their Bitcoin, and they're out hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you own 2 or 3 Bitcoins, that's over $100,000. And I'm sure that your beneficiaries would want to know about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at just about 10 minutes of, and Nancy's going to tell us how we can leave our stories that then become part of our assets to leave to our beneficiaries. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. You can mute yourselves, you can stop your video, and then we'll reform in a few at that point. Thank you very much. A lot to digest. And having seen all the things that go wrong, I can't stress enough to get this stuff taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Evan.
Thanks. Okay, folks, let's try and start again. Can you hear me? Raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So Nancy Spear is going to teach us how to, I guess, record family histories. And let me give a little bit of a introduction. I just started this book. It's called The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. It's about the African-American migration from the South to the North. And she's recounting stories of particular people, what it was like to live in the South in the 20s and 30s. And I guess she'll get into their experiences of living in places like Chicago and Detroit or wherever. And we all have that. I think, we're all immigrants here. There may be a few Native Americans, but basically we're immigrants, and our grandparents and our parents have stories to tell. And I realize I missed out on a lot of things that I wish I had asked my parents or my grandparents, particularly my grandparents, but I was, a teenager and unaware. And now I'm thinking, I share stuff with my kids and they kind of poo-poo it and, oh, isn't that funny? But it's who they are, it's who I am. So Nancy's going to give us some tools to save this stuff, which might be really valuable to families. So let me turn it over to Nancy Spear and take it away. You can hit the share screen, or you can.
Thank you, Evan.
Oh, there you are.
Here I am. Before I start my PowerPoint, I have a story to tell. So if you can put me on speaker view or spotlight. and then I'll share my screen. So you let me know when you can see.
You look good to me. You're filling the screen.
Okay, here we go. I'm sure we all have relatives or friends who live alone. They may feel isolated and lonely during the pandemic. Loneliness can lead to depression, and we don't want that. So how about we listen to their stories and record those stories on Zoom? I'm going to show you a few ways to get them talking. But before that, I have a story for you. About 8 years ago, I was at my parents' for lunch. We were wrapping it up, and I had to pick up my daughter at her friend's house. As I was leaving, my dad asked me how to attach a photo to an email. I put my things down and I went into his office and I said, "Dad, open up an email and click the paperclip." He followed my instructions and some folders popped up. One was called Korea. He clicked on it and found a picture of himself when he was 20 in the Marines stationed in Korea. He was so excited, he didn't even realize he had that photo. He wanted to tell me everything about it. It had snowed that day and it was so cold, he said. But I was in a hurry, so I just said, "Dad, let's try this again. I want to make sure you know how to attach a photo." He did it again and again got the same photo. He said, "It was so cold that day, the pipes had burst." We went back and forth and back and forth. He told me they had to start a fire. It was so cold. And I told him I needed to get my daughter. I looked at my watch and I said, "Dad, I have to go." He looked down. I looked at him sideways and I saw that his beard was gray and his arms were thin. So I put my things down, sat next to him, and asked, "Dad, how cold was it?" And I heard his story. Now we're going to get started. And I am sharing my screen. One moment. And there's my dad. You can see how cold it was, and I love that photo and I wanted to share it with you. So, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to how to record your family's history using Zoom, Google Maps, and YouTube. And somebody needs to mute themselves.
Nancy, unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's better. So I'm going to start with Google Maps. And top right corner, you will see my 91-year-old mother-in-law. And she remembered her very first childhood address, 65 Delavan Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. She had not seen this house for probably 50 years. Her family lived on the bottom of the duplex. It's painted brown. Upstairs was an Italian family, and I asked her to tell me about the Italian mother.
She was one of the most amazing cooks and just the Italian mama that everybody loved. She was so dear. Her husband had passed away, I think, while we were living in that house. Mm-hmm. And she raised those 4 kids. Let me see if I remember their names. There was Carmela, Marie, Anna, And the fourth was a boy named Benny. I don't remember. Oh, it's so bad.
I love it.
There were 3 daughters that were my best friends. They took care of me. They watched me. And interesting, Nance,
Yes.
house to the right, which would 67. You see it?
Yes. This one?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Downstairs was Mrs. Medley, my piano teacher. And her daughter was my best friend, Frances Medley.
So what I love about Google Maps is my mother-in-law had not seen that house for decades, but it reminded her of her past. And she was so excited that she remembered her friends upstairs, all their names, and who wouldn't want a piano teacher named Mrs. Medley? I love that. So what if you put an address in Google Maps and this comes up? That is not a 1950s house. Someone remodeled it. Never fear. Go down to the compass on the right and look across the street. There's a park with these very beautiful 3 trees. I bet they have been there for decades. Perhaps that person remembers running around and playing in this park. Circle around a little more. I see some original houses up the block. Maybe they remember who lived there. Maybe their best friend was there. You never know. But I love Google Maps just because you really can circle around and see a whole neighborhood. You can also scan old photos. So here's a photo I scanned. My mother is in the top right. She's going to be telling us a little bit about this photo. My grandma is in the bottom left. And I told my mom, I know a lot about my grandma and my Uncle Harry at the bottom right, but not much about the other people. And here's what she had to say.
The back row, the man with the mustache on the right is the oldest child. His name was Jack in this country. Everybody here was born in Europe. They were born in Latvia in the town of Mitau. Uncle Jack and my grandfather Benjamin worked together at sheet metal working in the town of Mitau. The back row.
So she had a lot to say. I learned a lot about my great aunts and uncles. She was so happy to have the chance to tell me. And before we stopped the Zoom, she said, make sure you send this to your cousins. They should know about this. How about digitizing your home movies that maybe are in your closet? I have resources if you need a guy. And this is my cousin Susan in the backyard. 3, 2, 1. There she goes. Now, several years ago, I worked with a gentleman who wanted to learn how to use Google to find his high school buddies. And we found a lot of them. One we couldn't find. He just didn't have enough information. So he was kind of dejected and he said, shoot, I wish I knew where Joe was. He and I used to drive around in my dad's car. And my ears perked up and I said, really? What kind of car did your dad have? And he told me. We went to Google and I told him to type in 54 red Buick Skylark. Clicked on images He looked around and he said it was this one, clicked on it, and he said, that was my dad's car. He told me Buick had changed the chassis a little bit and the wheel wells were angled differently, but that was definitely the car. So the point is, you don't necessarily need old photos. Ask them what their first car was. Ask them who taught them to drive. Did they go on any road trips? And you might hear some very interesting stories. Now here's really one of my favorite things. Ask them who their favorite singer or what their favorite song was in their teenage years, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. I go to YouTube and I type in Hit the Road Jack, Ray Charles, lead vocal, karaoke, and this is what we get.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Now, who doesn't like a sing-along? You're going to be on Zoom. You're going to see this together. And it's just so much fun. So again, Hit the Road Jack, Ray Charles. I like to key in lead vocal so you hear someone singing with you. And then karaoke will give you the lyrics. Okay, now I'm going to interrupt myself, because if this was a year and a half ago, I would be doing this in person. And I might have just heard someone singing along with Ray Charles, or someone would reach across the table and say, you know, that's interesting. I like what she's saying. But right now, we're all muted and I only see 4 people. So if you can go down to your reactions and give me a thumbs up, tell me if you like what I'm doing or if I'm falling on my face. Okay, there we go. I see some. Thank you, Evan. Now I'm feeling the love. Let's keep going. So I showed you some websites that you can use, but what do you really need to know? Before you start, have some questions ready. If you're using a photo, put it up on your desktop before you get on Zoom, so you'll find it right away. If you have kids or grandkids, don't wait for them to ask you. Share your stories with them. But how do I record it, you may ask? If you are the host, you'll see the record button on the bottom. When you want to take a break or stop, click the pause or stop recording, and the recording will save to your document folders. Now, here's something I thought about while I was putting this presentation together. How about you have a mini family reunion, maybe with 5 people or some friends from college, and you invite each person to scan a photo and each person shares their screen. I think that would be fun. So you would go to share screen at the bottom. There's a little upside down V next to it. We'll bring this window up, click on advanced sharing options. On the bottom right, you see advanced sharing options. How many participants can share at the same time? Only 1 participant at a time. And this is the important one. Who can share? All participants can share. Sounds like a good time to me. So I am actually a tech tutor, and I specialize in working with older adults, teaching them how to use their devices. So I'm happy to share all of this with you about recording your family's histories, but I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. I work with clients in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, how to teach them their tech devices. I teach 1 person at a time. I show them how to do a function, and then I have them do it over and over and over and over again until they're comfortable without me there. And I'm going to tell you one last story. A few years ago, I got a call from a woman. This is not her. This is just a bookmark. She wanted to learn how to use her email. She's in her late 80s. So we started working, and I showed her how to fill in the email address, create a subject line, put her message in the body copy, and send. And she was doing great. Then she called me and said, what I really need to know is how to download an attachment from my doctor because he's sending me test results. Great, we can do that. But then I thought, since I like my clients to do the same function over and over and over again, downloading test results is not really fun. So I thought about what I know about her. She's lived in Venice for 50 years and she loves to read. So I went to Wikipedia and found Venice Canal Historic District. I took some screenshots of the paragraphs. And then I went to Google Images and found these glorious historic postcards and downloaded them as well. The next day I went to her house and I knocked on the door and she answered it. And I said, I have a surprise for you, because I get really excited about these things. We went to her computer, we sat down. She opened the first email and I said, okay, scroll down. You'll see the attachment, click on it. It opened, go to print. Close the email, and I had sent her 5 emails with all these things attached. I don't know if I said that. So she had 5 emails with the history of Venice and the postcards. By the end of the hour, she knew exactly how to download an attachment and print it. Plus she had 10 pages of the history of Venice. And she looked up at me and she said, you're a damn good teacher. And that is my favorite testimonial of all. So I work with Macs and PCs, iPads and Kindles, iPhones, no Androids, just like Victoria, sorry. Pre-pandemic, I taught the fun stuff like emailing and texting, Facebook, taking photos, organizing with folders, safe online shopping. During the pandemic, I'm working remotely with a screen sharing program, and I added more serious functions like how to get on Zoom for a doctor's appointment or a yoga class. If you're with UCLA or St. John's Providence, you need to get on my chart to get your test results or make appointments with your doctor. Ordering groceries or finding volunteers to bring you groceries. Recognizing fraudulent emails. And my favorite, someone called me to get help getting on Disney Plus for Hamilton. That was a good day. So I love what I do. I miss seeing my people in person. However, our president says I may have my vaccination by the middle of May. I have a waiting list of people who want to see me in person. And I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you learned something. And thank you for your time.
Let's open this up to questions. And while you guys think, I'm going to ask a, sort of an open-ended question. Let's say I want to do some research on my family history. When you said your family was from Latvia, my father's family was from Latvia, and years ago, while it was still under the Soviet Union, my uncle tried to go there and they wouldn't let him, to some little town called Skoda, I think it was.
Huh.
But let's say you want to do some research on your family history. What would you suggest?
I helped a woman find the census results and the ship's list coming to Ellis Island. You know, you can go on ancestry.com, but there are other ways to just click around. You have to be patient. But Google like census, and I'm sure there's a website for Ellis Island. They actually have recordings of some of my great uncles. So there are a lot of good ways to go with that.
Yeah.
And you're from Latvia. I'm from Latvia. I thought you looked familiar, Evan.
What's interesting is when my wife and I were first married, I'll tell a story. My wife is Dominican, and we went to Ellis Island, and you could see all the numbers spiked when my family came over, in the 1890s and so on. And then there was another spike when the Dominicans started to come over. And it's the immigrant stories are the same story over and over and over again. It's really interesting. Come on, people, let's ask some questions. I have one so far. It's more technical. Would you talk about choosing a scanner? Maybe this person has a shoebox or 3 of old photos and wants to put them on her computer, share them. Oh, his computer. Oh, Michael Stein, okay. What would you recommend you do with your shoebox or 2 of old photos? Organizing them, starting with maybe a scanner, organizing the whole thing.
Yeah, start with the scanner. I would suggest, an all-in-one printer, scanner. I don't know if anyone faxes anymore. I do a lot of teaching, but I do have a lot of great tech guys I work with. And if Michael wants to give me a call, I will give him some names.
Okay, what about organizing it so you just don't have, 75 photos in download?
Okay, so first of all, yes, there are people who I can help you organize them on your screen if you're using a photo app or Google Drive or Dropbox. And there are also people who organize them, in boxes and in photo albums. However, if you have old photos in a photo album with that acetate over it, don't try to take them out to scan them.
Why?
Well, the acetate is sticking to the top of the folder of the photo.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I can tell you.
So I have a scanner, but it's one with sort of a roller and it goes through. It's really good for documents that I want to save, old bills that I want to save that they sent me in the mail and then throw away. What about for photos? I don't want to run them through this that, would curl them.
So you're going to put the photo facing down in your printer and scan it that way. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I have a separate scanner. It's a ScanSnap, and it works good for documents because you stick the document in and it feeds it through.
Okay.
But it won't take thicker things, and I wouldn't want to put a photo in and have it come out curled.
Okay. If you have an iPhone, we're back to the iPhone. In your Notes app, there's a scanner. So you just put your phone over the photo, I promise.
Oh, okay. I'm writing that down
Okay.
to look up. Come on, people, you must have some questions. Oh, okay. Okay, here's a question.
Yes.
I've been having problems getting my chart set up. I'm not familiar with that. Are there any tips, tricks you could share to help?
Yeah, so My Chart is a website that at least UCLA and St. John Providence uses to send appointment reminders. You'll get your test results. I have found, so you can get it on an app on your phone. I do have a client who goes through the website and then she can toggle between her information and her husband's information. Best thing I can say is give me a call and I can walk you through it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Victoria notes that Scan Snap also makes the scanned photo have an orange tint. So you may not want to use that unless you want your family to look orange. Would Adobe Elements be good software to save photos on a PC?
You are asking me such good questions, and I'm going to tell you that since I work with 90-year-olds, I really don't know. But I do have resources, and you can send me an email and I'll see what I can do.
Okay, so that raises a question. Let's say, you know, my 85-year-old uncle or somebody comes to me and wants to get started on this or needs some help. Any hints on, I guess, the interpersonal teaching aspect of it, more than just, we'll use this program or that program?
That one I can answer. So I would say if you're talking to your uncle and he wants to know how to learn something right away and you don't have the time, say, you know what, I want to help you and I'm going to schedule a block of time so that I have enough time for you. You don't want to do it when you're in a hurry. And understand, if you teach him one thing in an hour, he's happy. You don't need to do a dozen things. And Evan, realize that when your uncle's asking you how to do something tech-wise, he's probably also just wanting to be with you and wants you to. And take a breath. You know, you're not gonna, you can tell them you're not gonna press a button and make everything go away. Make sure your computer is backed up. And if you think you hit the wrong button, you know, Macs especially will say, are you sure you want to delete this? You're not going to hurt anything. That's my advice.
You mentioned backing up. You have any suggestions on backing up? I have to do it because I have to keep client information off-site. So I use iCloud.
Good.
But do you have any recommendations just for the average person who wants to, you know, save old photos that she put on her computer, things like that?
It's good to have a few backup programs just in case one doesn't back up. iCloud is good. I also have a G drive for my Mac. If you have an external hard drive that you're using to back up, make sure you don't keep it in the same room as your computer. If God forbid there's a fire and one of them stops working, you'll still have it on the backup. There's also a program called iDrive that I think is out of Seattle, and they do a good job of backing up. So you need to have a few.
Okay, I'll give my quick experience. I took my 500 CDs that were sitting in the garage that I never got to, and over a period of like 3 or 4 weeks, I put them all onto a separate hard drive that I connect to my laptop, and it works through iTunes. And then I made a copy of that and I put it in a separate room. Maybe I should put it in a safe deposit box. And I ended up, you know, giving most of my CDs away. But now I'm able to get them quickly and easily. I don't have to go out to the garage and find it because I didn't put it back in order. Let me move to another couple of questions.
Okay.
I've been writing my memoirs. This is from Martin Perlman. I've been writing my memoirs using Microsoft Works, which came with the computer. Can you teach Word?
Yes, I can teach Word.
So what will Word do that the freebie won't do?
I'm not sure what the freebie is, but Microsoft Words, you can have your page numbers, have your titles. We can organize it into chapters. It's a good program.
And it's pretty standard. Everybody uses it.
Yes.
Okay, come on, people. Let's have some questions.
Evan, there were other questions, I think, if you scroll up. So somebody asked about, how to
okay.
digitize old videos and other like
okay. I'm
online
missing
services.
those. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So how do you digitize all those old,
Films?
the films and the, that were taken in the 1950s and they're on a spool for a projector that no longer exists?
Yes. There are several people who do it. I know a guy in the Valley who I gave some of my in-laws films to. I mean, they looked like they were disintegrating and he just did a great job. So his name is Maury Gomberg, and I can give you some information if you give me a call. And
Okay.
it's just so exciting because you haven't seen them for years.
And that would go for old reel-to-reel tapes and,
Yes.
your favorite cassette dance party music. You could have that put onto a CD.
Yeah, he just put them on a thumb drive for me.
Okay. What else do we have?
There was
Somebody's
another-
asking.
Yeah, there's another one about how do you recommend, do you recommend any online services to start tracking family history?
Yeah, and not only do you recommend services, but what kind of steps would you take?
I would start with looking up the census records, Ellis Island. I haven't used Ancestry, but I have some clients who love it. And really just start with your relatives. They may have documents that you don't even know about.
That's right. When I was with this with this trust attorney, we had one client who brought in a box of dad's old papers or whatever it was. And we had it must have been like a 1915, 1916 tax return.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fascinating.
I found my dad's, what is it called when you're exiting the military?
Your discharge?
Yeah, I found my dad's discharge papers in a box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could take that and have it framed,
Mm-hmm.
or you could digitize it, or both.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, here's somebody else that mentions Geni, GENI.com. I guess that's another one for searching your ancestry.
Okay, good to know.
What about the costs of digitizing? More or less ballpark.
I wish I could remember. It's more expensive than just doing like videotapes. I think I got 3 reels of film for less than $200, and it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's somebody asking about deleting multiple, I guess, duplicate photos, if there's a program or how you would do it.
I know on a Mac, I think it's just a right click and it will say, are you sure you want to delete it? But it depends on the program.
Yeah, and I would say triple check before you delete.
Yes.
It's the old measure twice and cut once. Okay, any more questions? Let's open it. If you have questions for Victoria too. Oh, here's somebody that says, oh, Jorge Montero. Okay. Costco has a good service for taking old videos and giving you a DVD and also access through the internet. That's what you want. So Costco does it.
Costco. Good to know.
So let's open it up for any kind of discussion, questions, comments.
I want to say one more thing that Victoria addressed. If you have an iPhone, there is in your health app, it looks like a heart. And you go in there and put in your emergency contacts, like she said. You can put your allergies, your, if you're an organ donor, blood type. And God forbid you're in an accident and you cannot speak to the emergency responders, and they don't know the password to your phone. It says emergency ID on the bottom left. They tap that and they'll find your emergency contacts. They're not finding
Okay.
your credit card information or anything like that.
So that would save them a lot if it says blood type and things like that, or I'm allergic to.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Juta has her hand up.
All right. Yes, I'm unmuted. Nancy, thank you so much for your presentation. It is amazingly important that in advanced age, people hanging on and learning, continue to learn and using computers. It's inevitable for life. I myself, I'm super grateful that I started it a few years ago. I'm super grateful in the pandemic, in COVID, to have access to it. Opened up the world in isolation. So your service is fantastic. I have a question. Are you working with iPad with seniors?
You know, I haven't found a screen sharing program that works with mobile devices easily. So right now I'm just doing PCs and Mac desktops.
Okay.
Laptop.
Okay.
As soon as I can get my vaccine, yes, I'll be working with iPhones and iPads.
iPads as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's somebody, Carla's advising, check with Costco. A lot of photo centers closed during the pandemic. Maybe they're going to reopen, but double check before you drag your box of photos and things to be digitized. We have anything else? No more questions? Well, I thank you both.
I was just going to say, once I was recently with my great aunt who just turned 85, and she just started talking to me, and and I remember. And so there's the ability on your iPhone, probably on an Android too, to just record the audio only, because I didn't want to like pull up my phone and distract her from her story, but I did want to get the story. So I just kind of like discreetly really, found the record button. So at least I had the audio of her talking. So there's so sometimes when it just organically happens, just start recording to get it, even if it's not perfect. So it was really great. She was actually talking about the very first time she met my aunt, who is her niece. And so it was just a good story.
I would think that if we are able to get together for July 4th, that you bring your phone and you just put it in the middle of the table and everybody talks about what it was like, because, kids now, they won't remember. And that would really be something. Here's history, and this is what it was like. I guess, what was it? Oh, there's a professor from New York University, Scott Galloway. He has a blog and all that, but he was talking about his mother, who was a child in Britain during the Blitz, and her experiences with going into the bomb shelters and putting on the gas mask and all of that. And that sort of thing, it would be so foreign, even, to all of us that are adults. We didn't go through that. And to hear a first person description of that would probably be very fascinating. Any more comments, questions, recommendations? Okay, well, thank everybody. This has been a really nice change from should I buy this mutual fund or sell that bond? And the important thing about all of that is the money is a tool. The money is a way for you to have the nice things so you can record family stories. So when you do pass on, you make it as easy as possible for your beneficiaries and to prevent the typical fighting. So thank you all. If you have any questions, contact Victoria, contact Nancy. They'd be happy to help you.
I think at the end of the day here, the takeaway from this morning, at least what I got, is that leaving a legacy is so important, whether it be the finances, the home, the things, the stories, all that stuff. And so I think if nothing else, like be thinking about, you know, those that you're leaving behind and the future generations. Your legacy is so important.
Right. And if you ever doubt that, just talk to anybody that works in an estate attorney's office, talk to Victoria, talk to me. You will hear stories that you can't believe what family does to each other. So thank you all very much. Any questions? We're all available. You take care, and the sun is out. It's cold, but it's sunny and looks nice. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Evan, for your putting this wonderful morning together. It was very rich in information.
It's enjoyable. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.